We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
The vice presidential pick can be either a thing of legend, a builder of legacies, or the biggest liability your campaign might have. So who's picking who, and what's going on for this election cycle? We're very lucky to have with us Liberty Nation's executive editor, Leesa K. Donner. Thanks for being here, Leesa.
Good to be with you, Mark, Mr. Editor-in-Chief. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, Leesa, I really want to talk about the VP picks. Now, of course, all the news is about who Donald Trump's going to choose for the second slot. Now, I believe that information is coming just before the Republican National Convention, so that would make it around the 13th or 14th, just before it kicks off, or he might announce at the actual thing. But first, I want to talk about a VP pick who's already in place, and that would be Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, is she, as I alluded to in the introduction here, is she a legacy builder? Is she a legend in her own break time? Or is she a liability to Joe Biden?
Well, the problem with Kamala Harris or Kamala or however.
Miss Harris.
Ms. Harris.
VP Harris. Let's do that. Let's do that. VP Harris.
Try if they might. The Democrats can't seem to find a place for her that sort of works. Even though she's vice president, she just seems to be, you put her in the immigration topic and she doesn't seem to do much with it. You put her in other topics, she doesn't seem to excel there. So any way you cut it, she's turning out to be a liability. And at the same time, Biden can't exactly cut her. So that's a given. He's got to work with that. And there's no place for him to go with that, I think, at this point. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the situation everybody's determined at. And it's more important this time than any other because Joe Biden is a gazillion years old. I'm not sure. I think 81 years old, I think he is, or 82.
Well, the problem with Biden is you can't use numbers because I know a lot of 81-year-olds that are pretty with it.
Of course.
He doesn't seem particularly with it, which is the problem, I think, with him.
Absolutely. But there's a chance that he might not be around for the entire term. It's there, and we should talk about it openly. And that means that Vice President Kamala Harris could become President Kamala Harris by default without going through an election. Now, it's just a personal opinion here, but I don't think that Kamala Harris would do particularly well if she were running by herself for the presidency. I don't believe that she would get the necessary support, even from groups who are generally supportive of the Democratic Party, because she seems to, as you pointed out, every project she takes on, it's not as though she says, I'm done with this project, it's over, I've either completed it or failed. She just kind of moves on quietly, and nobody in the media will mention again that she was the border czar, designed to figure out the root causes and solve them.
Well, she's suffering from what I call Dan Quayle-itis, and this isn't to be mean to Dan Quayle. Dan Quayle had a lot going for him, but for some reason the public perception of him was somebody who's not too bright, somebody who's not too with it. And so, and whether true or not, that was the public perception. Also, I think Ms. Harris has the issue of the likability factor.
Yeah.
And that's what really brought Hillary Clinton down. People did not like her. They just couldn't cotton to her. And I think that's the problem that Ms. Harris has in the VP position. She may be able to actually get up to snuff on the position, but the perception of her has always been rather negative. And her poll numbers have always been really, really quite low.
Well, now that Mitch McConnell is stepping down from leadership role, she is the most unpopular leadership role politician in the country, and that's not even by a small margin, and it hasn't been for a short time either.
Before all the conservatives turn us off, let's get to the real fun.
Yeah, let's get to the big question. Donald Trump. Now,
I'm just going to start out by saying I talked you into reading Hillbilly Elegy.
Yes,
which is J.D. Vance's first book.
Yes, so J.D. Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy, it's beautiful and it's poignant. And as an Englishman, which it might surprise a few of our American listeners, who are obviously the majority of our listeners. It resonated with me in a way that surprised me and moved me to quite a degree, because what J.D. Vance was describing about his upbringing, that's what that's what so many young Brits, when they're growing up, that's what we feel. There's this disconnect. There's this almost expectation that we have to make an excuse for why we're failing or why we're going to fail.
Yeah,
And it really blew me away that there was such a comparison there. And of course, J.D. Vance in the book, he he notes that the description that he's using of the hillbillies is the same words and it's the same things that he's using to describe Southern blacks in
yeah.
America.
Mhm.
And it's really it's a much more universal book than you might imagine if you haven't read it. And but not for that reason, not for the book that he wrote, do I believe that JD Vance will be. That's my prediction, by the way. I believe he will be the VP pick for Donald Trump. Leesa, tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, a couple of things. You could see the change in his political philosophy through
Mm,
that book. You just knew he started very left of center, then moved to the center. And I don't know that he made the complete metamorphosis before he finished the book. You could tell where he was going, which is what I'm seeing in a lot of younger people, millennials. I just had some people out Saturday, and we were all talking and swimming and barbecuing and having fun. And the young lady there was always very, very left of center, and now she is a big Trump supporter. And it was quite a
mm,
change. 22 years old. Went to lots of marches and rallies early on, and then just started to see what she felt, in her words, was the bankruptcy of the left. And you could see Vance doing that. I don't think Vance is a good pick for a couple of reasons. Number one, Ohio's not really in play. And
sure.
I'm from the old school. I believe that LBJ, JFK picked LBJ, and that's what put him over the top, really. He needed Texas. He had to have Texas. And of course, a little help from his friends in Illinois. But anyway, long story short, I think Trump needs somebody that's going to help him in the Electoral College.
Sure.
Rubio does not fill that. In fact, Rubio has the problem of being from the same state.
12th Amendment. Yeah. 12th Amendment issue there.
DeSantis has that same problem. I heard people talking about Nikki Haley, and the funny thing about Nikki Haley is that you get two polar opposite reactions.
Mm,
Half the people are like, no, never, don't pick Haley. And the other half are like, no, this makes sense because she speaks to the suburban women, and she's kind of moderate on the abortion issue, which is a strength for Biden at this point. So I'm sort of startled at how divisive the idea of Nikki Haley is. I'm not saying she will be picked. My pick is actually Tim Scott. I think Scott he's the yin to Trump's yang.
mm.
Not going to bring that electoral college help because South
South
Carolina.
Carolina.
But I do think he is a cool customer, and Trump can tend to run hot. So
Yeah.
I like
The
the mix
calm
everything
versus the
together.
storm.
Yeah. I don't know what, and I think we should look up maybe what the perception of Tim Scott is among the Black community, because Trump is really working hard for the Black vote. He didn't go to the Bronx by chance. He went
Mm.
to the Bronx for a purpose, and a ton of people showed up for a reason.
So back to our original question then, Leesa. Legacy builder, legend, or liability? Will the VP pick for Donald Trump will that be the thing that moves the needle for Donald Trump in 2024?
Well, I'm on the fence. Part of it makes me say the trial right now might move the needle, but who he picks as a VP ultimately, I think, will matter a lot. And it's got to be somebody that, polls pretty well, speaks to the people that are maybe on the fence about Trump, and brings something to the ticket. You just need somebody that brings something to the ticket.
And of course, Donald Trump will want to drag it out as much as possible in an apprentice style format. Leesa K. Donna.
Why not? Why not?
Absolutely. The greatest show on earth. Leesa K. Donna, thanks ever so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.